Dear beloved audience, those watching on television or any other medium in this era of mass communication, I warmly welcome you all. Today, I stand here not as an orator or an expert, but simply as a beggar. Yes, you heard that right. A beggar on television. You see, every time I appear, it's not to boast about knowledge or tell funny stories, but to plead for help for the unfortunate souls in Asia, Africa, and across the world. Just last year, thanks to your generosity, we were able to support over 65 million elderly, sick, and orphan people, most of whom, about 95%, aren't even Christians. We have over 100 unpaid volunteers working tirelessly day and night for this mission. And today, I continue my role. I ask you to make a small sacrifice, perhaps skip a few cigarettes, a glass of wine at lunch, or a couple of candies, and send it to 366 Fifth Avenue. But don't do it because the poor need it. Do it because you need it, for the love of God. Because the wealth in our souls is sometimes poorer than the lives of those we help. Speaking of begging, I recall a special letter I received last week, one that moved me so much I must share it with you. It came from a 2-year-old girl, written in innocent but heartfelt words. She wrote, "Dear sir, I hope you can help me. I need $50 to buy a horse. My grandfather promised me a horse when I was 5. 7 long years have passed, and I still don't have one. Now my brother in Ohio found one, and he says, if I want it, I have to find the money. If you could just give me half, it would help so much. I know many people need money more than I do. But when you're promised something for so long, and you see your friends with horses, I cry. My 2 cousins already have horses, and it hurts so much. We live on a small farm with enough space for a horse and room to ride. Sir, I pray for you every night and for my horse. The nun who teaches us says priests, nuns, and the Pope need prayers. If you help me, I'll know my prayers aren't in vain. Please send me a short reply, yes or no. And if it's no, I'll still pray for you every night." You see, I love this letter the most out of the thousands I receive, because I, too, am a beggar. I understand the longing of that poor girl, yearning for a horse the way I yearn for help for the poor. She needs a horse. I need, well, maybe a new car to get to volunteer communities faster. But I'm just kidding. The letter touched my heart, and I decided she'll have her horse. And a saddle, too. Why a saddle? Oh, let me tell you a funny story about St. Bernard, the saint known for his compassion. One day, St. Bernard was riding a horse with a friend, and they were talking about prayer. The friend boasted, "I'm never distracted when I pray." St. Bernard laughed. "Really? I'll bet this horse that you can't say the Lord's Prayer without getting distracted." The friend dismounted and began, "Our Father, who art in heaven, give us this day our daily bread." Then he looked up. "Can I have the saddle too?" Ha! You see, distracted instantly, and so am I. Telling a joke and almost messing it up. Speaking of jokes, you know, on television, many people use idiot cards, those pre-written cue cards they sneak a peek at when telling stories or singing. Last week, after the show, I saw those cards scattered around, and I showed them to the audience. So, the mischievous stagehands prepared a new card for me. "Next time you tell a joke, use the idiot card, like real comedians." I laughed so hard, but then I thought, you know, Lent is coming, a time for sacrifice and reflection. And from the story of the girl with the horse, let's move to a deeper issue. one that many parents face in today's chaotic society. Why should parents obey their children? Oh, don't be shocked. It's just a hypothetical argument I'll present and then refute. To clarify the importance of authority in the family, we'll explore 3 such arguments, showing that obedience isn't a shackle, but the foundation of love and morality. As I said, today's topic might sound counterintuitive. Why should parents obey their children? Don't worry. I'm not advocating for a family revolution. In fact, I'll present 3 seemingly convincing arguments, ones often used in modern society to justify spoiling children, and then dissect each one to show the truth is the opposite. In today's world, where juvenile delinquency is rising and young people seem lost amidst temptations from media and consumer culture, understanding family authority is critical. Authority isn't a shackle. It's the foundation for love, morality, and healthy development. We only have time for 3 arguments, but I promise to put my heart into them to make them sound compelling before debunking them. Let's begin. The first argument goes like this. Parents should obey their children because if they don't, the children will have to obey the parents. And if children obey, they'll have to accept parental authority. Accepting that authority leads to authoritarianism, a force that has brought so much harm to the world. Think about it. What gave rise to Hitler and Mussolini, if not authoritarianism? History is full of examples of how imposed power leads to violence and rebellion. If parents become authoritarian at home, the next generation will rebel, seeking revenge by breaking all societal rules. No. To avoid that, parents must obey their children, letting them be free, unbound by any authority. Sounds logical, right? Especially in an era that champions individual freedom and children's rights. But hold on, what is this argument really? In truth, it's a dangerous confusion between authoritarianism and true authority. Authoritarianism is political, an imposition of ideology through violence, tools like police, brainwashing, or Siberian camps. It's external oppression, with no room for love or trust. Parental authority, however, is entirely different. It's the voluntary acceptance of a rule or truth because we love and trust the one who sets it. To illustrate, let me quote one of the greatest minds in history, not just a great mind, but the greatest St. Thomas Aquinas. I'll read it in Latin for you to feel its depth. Then translate ex reverentia tre tipi and pis. Procedaring zebet reverendia prehecti. For the 3 of you out of millions watching who still remember some Latin, here's the translation. Respect for the law stems from respect for the lawgiver. That's the key. Take a simple everyday example. Imagine a boy playing baseball in the yard. And suddenly Mickey Mantle, the baseball legend, shows up and says, "Hey, Johnny, this is how you hold the bat." From that moment, no other boy or father can teach him how to hold it. Why? Because he trusts Mickey Mantle, his value, his expertise. The advice is followed not out of fear, but out of respect for Mantle's baseball prowess. Similarly, if Fritz Kreisler, the great violinist, teaches a boy how to play a piece, Kreisler's word is final. Why? Because of his excellence in violin. We accept authority not because we're forced, but because we see value in it. Now apply this to the family. Children obey parents primarily out of respect for them, the ones who set the laws of the house. It's not blind obedience, but based on love and natural dependence. A young child knows they depend on their parents, who sacrifice so much staying up late, working hard to provide because of that love, that display of care. Children obey. But if that respect is missing, disobedience follows. Imagine a drunken father stumbling home every night. How can he tell his 2-year-old daughter, "Don't ever touch alcohol"? Or a father who steals a wrench from the factory and then tells his son, Don't steal. Impossible. Because those parents lack moral worth. As they say, obedience comes only when the one giving orders is worthy. I recall a true story from the Vaughan family in England, a well-known aristocratic family. One day, Colonel Vaughan saw his young son Bernard piling his plate with dessert. He said, "Son, you'll never be a true gentleman if you don't learn self-control." Bernard looked at his father and replied, "Father, you still use that tobacco box." Immediately, Colonel Vaughan took his beloved tobacco box and threw it into the fireplace, declaring, "Son, I'll never touch it again." You see, true authority is never heavy when there's love. A boy once told his mother, "Mom, if I really loved you as I should, I'd never get spanked again." And that's the profound meaning in Jesus' words. If you love me, you will keep my commandments. John 1:4-1:5. Ultimately, obedience hinges on the moral worth of parents, the worth children see and respect. The first argument falls apart because it confuses oppression with love. Now, the second argument, which sounds even more convincing. If parents don't obey their children and keep giving orders, the children won't love them. A mother might think, if I don't let my child do what they want, they won't love me. I must let them be free to do whatever they want. Why impose morality or religion on them? Wait until they're 21. Then let them decide. Sounds like advice from modern psychology books. Right. But what's the reality? The opposite. Parents who let their children be free in that way rarely receive love or respect from them. Think of the mother standing in court, where their sons are tried for juvenile crimes, crying, "We couldn't do anything with him." Why? Because they never did anything for him, never taught, never set boundaries. Without sacrifice, there's no true love. Let me quote from the best study on juvenile delinquency by Dr. Sheldon Grueck and his wife, Eleanor. They studied hundreds of cases and found only 2 out of 10 delinquent children wanted to be like their fathers because their fathers let them do anything, teaching nothing. And fewer than 7 out of 10 said they had real affection for their mothers because their mothers spoiled them in the same way. John Ruskin, the famous English writer, once asked his mother when he was successful, "Mother, why isn't our bond as deep as other mothers and sons?" She replied, "Because I spoiled you too much." My son, exactly spoiled children see parents as useful tools, existing only to meet their needs, to give them everything. But where there's mere usefulness, deep love is often absent. Just as in human relationships, if it's based only on pleasure or benefit, there's no true love. Children raised this way expect parents to do everything. And when grown, they expect the state to do the same. A dependent, irresponsible society. I once saw this at a big toy store during Christmas. There was a giant zebra, this tall, and I asked the clerk, "Does it do anything?" "No." "See ya. It does nothing." I joked, "What spoiled kid buys that?" The clerk laughed. Exactly. A kid came in, threw a tantrum until the parents bought it. Cost $300. I thought, that father should have spanked the kid with a whip instead of buying the zebra. Or take the story of a boy questioned by a social worker. "Where's your dad?" "In jail." "Your mom?" "On parole." "Your sister?" "In juvenile court." "Any other siblings?" "Yeah." "My brother Spike at Harvard." "Harvard? What's he studying?" "No." They're studying him, you see. Spoiling leads to chaos. And the logic of this argument fails elsewhere. Why not apply it to everything? Why teach kids English from a young age, maybe at 21? They'll want to learn Sanskrit. Why teach manners? Maybe they'll want to grow up rude. I recall a flight attendant dealing with rowdy kids on a plane at 15. 0, 0, 0 feet. She joked, want to go play outside. If kids aren't physically cared for, straight bones, healthy teeth, they won't love their parents. Similarly, if not taught morality, they won't respect them. Parents must remember, train obedience before children understand why. Virtuous habits must form early through parental love, and later, kids will understand and develop self-control. The second argument collapses too. Finally, the third argument, very scientific, Freudian style. We shouldn't teach kids right and wrong because Freud. At the core of every child is the id, primal instincts. Above it is the superego morality, religion, social rules repressing the id, leading to guilt complexes. Teaching right and wrong makes kids develop guilt. Becoming unstable, let them be free. Never say, you did wrong. I saw a New Yorker cartoon. A psychologist tells a mother, stubborn, deviant, criminal tendencies, wild, addicted to stealing, yes, but bad. No, they fear. Teaching right and wrong will fill streets with psychiatrist couches. But what's the reality? Completely wrong. Kids must be taught right and wrong because they already have a natural conscience. Assuming all instincts are good is a fantasy. A broken bone hurts because it's out of place. Conscience hurts when actions are wrong. I have a letter from 10-year-old Judy, dear sir. I have a guilty conscience. Mom gave us each 2 chocolates and said, that's it. But I took more. I don't want to be bad, but I love chocolate. Is it wrong? Here's 25 cents to make up. That's proof of a well-raised family. Not teaching right and wrong leads to an immoral society. All 3 arguments are wrong. Parental authority is essential for love and growth. And from here, let's move to another issue tied to freedom and slavery, alcoholism. From the arguments about authority and obedience in the family, we see that true freedom isn't blindly following desires, but choosing based on morality and love. This leads us to another widespread issue in modern society, alcoholism. You know, today people call alcoholism a disease, a compulsion neurose. But through a Christian lens, I prefer the term Jesus used, slavery. Whoever commits sin becomes a slave to sin. John 8:3-4. Why slavery over disease? Because it implies some freedom remains along the path of downfall, not an unchangeable fate. Alcoholism isn't innate or entirely innocent. It's a series of free choices leading to self-imposed chains. Let's analyze it through 4 clear stages to see where freedom lies and how to break free. I'll share real stories, scientific examples, and spiritual lessons to clarify. As this isn't just a medical issue, but one of the human soul. The first stage is suggestion. This is when someone invites you. Why not have a drink? Everyone's doing it. You look odd if you don't. There's nothing morally wrong with a social drink. I'm not debating the morality of drinking here. Just analyzing the process. But freedom here is absolute. You can accept or refuse. No one forces you to pick up the glass. I recall a funny story about a 70-year-old woman persuaded to try alcohol for the first time. She sipped slowly, savored the taste, and exclaimed, "Oh, this is just like the medicine my husband took for 40 years. She didn't get addicted, but the suggestion opened the door." In today's society, suggestions come from everywhere. Wine ads on television, parties with friends, or cultural pressure to relax after work. But remember, freedom is key. You choose to open or close the door. Next is the second stage action. After the suggestion, you decide to drink the first time. The second, maybe just experimenting. It's not a huge temptation, as one drink isn't a sin. But it's the first step toward habit. Here, freedom is still full. Nothing binds you to continue. But if repeated, it leads to the third stage habit. Habits are built from repeated actions. The word habit isn't bad in moral theology. The 7 virtues are called 7 habits. But here, the drinking habit becomes a chain. Each drink is a link, gradually imprisoning the person. At this point, people try to break free, but find the key rusted, difficult, but not impossible. Today, they call these people social drinkers, the kind who, when spelling Mississippi, don't know where to stop. Ha! But joking aside, this habit can lead to serious consequences. Finally, the 4th stage disease, or slavery. Here, freedom is largely destroyed, but not entirely. People feel compelled to drink, like an uncontrollable addiction. But why do I prefer slavery over disease? Because slavery implies personal responsibility. This isn't external slavery, like in communist countries behind the Iron Curtain, where oppression comes from the state. No, this is self-imposed slavery from initial choices and evidence of remaining freedom. First, in the habit stage, there's remorse. Alcoholics often feel regret after a binge pain for hurting family, losing jobs. You don't regret tuberculosis or diabetes, as those aren't chosen. But with alcohol, there's internal conflict. Heaven and hell battle within. Proving moral freedom remains. Second, the cunning and deceit of addicts. Most are brilliant con artists, avoiding responsibility. I know a real case. A husband, an alcoholic, lived with his wife for 2 years. She said, I never saw him sober, but I never saw him drink a drop. How they lived in a big house. And he had a room with love trophies, silver cups, arranged on the wall at different heights. As he moved from room to room, he'd jump on a chair, take a cup, drink the alcohol he poured inside, put it back, and move on. His wife followed him for ages to figure it out. You see, someone truly ill doesn't hide like that. They don't sneak to take headache medicine. This cunning proves there's still freedom, still conscious choice. Even in the disease stage, freedom persists. A terminal cancer patient can't heal by willpower. But with alcoholism, it's not rare for people to quit suddenly due to new motivation. I've seen many addicted for decades who stop thanks to God's grace like a hole in their head where God pours in blessings. That's spiritual freedom. Now, the big question, why do people drink excessively? 2 main reasons. 1, because they like it. 2, because they don't like something else they're escaping. In the past, many drank for pleasure. But today, most especially women and young men drink to escape. Women often don't get addicted for the taste, but due to life's pressures, family, work, loneliness. Men, too, increasingly so. To illustrate, consider Dr. Jules Masserman's experiment with 16 cats. He trained them to go to a food box, then taught them to press a red button to open it. Later, he wired the button to shock them. Each press caused pain, so they avoided the food. He tried giving them milk with alcohol. They refused. Then he injected alcohol into their veins under its influence. They staggered to the button, endured the shock for food. After repeated trials, they became apathetic, useless. Eventually, they willingly drank the alcohol-laced milk to overcome the shock of the button. Conclusion: the cats didn't get addicted for alcohol's sake, but to overcome obstacles to what they wanted, food. For humans, we live in an era unprepared for life's shocks. Past Christian culture taught limiting desires for happiness. Now, ads push, don't restrain, have it all. Result, piled up disappointments. Marriages aren't perfect like movies. Money isn't as dreamed. criticism from spouses or friends. We feel confined, pressured, and don't know how to cope. So, what does alcohol become? Not the demon in the bottle of old, but a lowercase god, a false deity. Addicts face disappointments, imperfect marriages. Is any marriage fully compatible? Less money than hoped. Criticism. They want escape. A mystical experience. Strength to endure. Without the true God, they find a God in the bottle. Alcohol gives false courage. Numbs conscience. No need to think about harming wife or kids. Family. It takes them to a third heaven, where the heart expands, embracing the universe, life. Once saying no, now says yes. All external coldness melts. Thanks to this new religion, the bottle is the church. Intoxication, the offering. They've drunk God and feel like gods. That's why alcoholism exists today. Misplaced infinite longing. I recall a personal story from childhood to illustrate. Every Sunday afternoon, my parents took us to visit Uncle Bill and Aunt Hannah. Not real aunt and uncle, but great-grandparents. Later, I learned Uncle Bill was a heavy alcoholic for 20 years. Aunt Hannah prayed ceaselessly for him. Then one day, he quit. And they became the happiest couple I ever saw. I loved visiting because they told funny stories, gave gingerbread. And Uncle Bill always gave my brother Tom, now a doctor in New York, a quarter. Mom told Tom, "Don't ask Uncle Bill for more." Tom promised, but next time, as we left, he just said, "You know, Uncle," and got his quarter. "Uncle Bill once loved alcohol, but through prayer, he found the true God." Today, many are addicted because they're escaping, like in the cat experiment. So, how to heal, not just medically, though medicine helps, but through spiritual motivation. Just saying it's a disease or you're sinful isn't enough. You must fill the infinite longing with God. Recall the gospel. An empty soul is possessed by a demon. Then 7 worse demons return, making things worse. Matthew 1, 2, 4, 3, 4, 5. It must be filled with true mystical experience, prayer. Race. I met a non-religious woman spending $8, 0 a year on alcohol. I said, "I can't drive alcohol out of you because you love it most, but I can overwhelm it with something you love more." I spent an hour and a half talking about God's love, redemption. She quit immediately. Finding new motivation. Many similar cases addicts need to see initial freedom, remorse, and open to God. From alcoholism, we see freedom can be lost but regained through grace. This leads to another aspect of freedom in youth, the stages of relationships between boys and girls. We just discussed alcoholism, how people seek a lowercase God in a bottle to fill infinite longing, only to find slavery. From this, we see true freedom isn't following every desire, but directing the heart to what's right, to God, to true love. This brings us to a new topic. One, every parent or youth worker must understand the psychology of developing relationships between boys and girls. In today's society, where media and modern culture bombard youth with distorted images of love, understanding their developmental stages is crucial. How do we guide children through these emotional years so they don't place infinite longing in finite things? I'll walk you through 4 natural stages in boy-girl relationships, from innocent closeness to meaningful courtship, and weave in real stories. Some humor and spiritual lessons to clarify how to educate youth rightly. Let's start, and I promise to keep you from boredom. Though I might mess up a few words like last time, the first stage is closeness. Typically, in childhood, when boys and girls play together naturally, without hesitation about gender differences. At this age, Kids don't yet know the complications gender brings later. They play ball, run, build sandcastles, and enjoy innocence. I recall a funny story about two kids on a beach, both from divorced families. One asked, "Do you like your dad?" The other replied, "Yeah, last year we liked your dad too, huh?" Such precious innocence. At this stage, there are no gender barriers. No boys must be this. Girls must be that. They're just friends, sharing simple joys. Parents and teachers don't need to interfere much here, as this naturalness lays the foundation for healthy relationships later. But don't think this stage lasts forever. It soon shifts to an interesting turning point. That's the second stage, separation, often starting at puberty, around 10 to 14. Here, you'll see a strange phenomenon. Boys suddenly don't want to be seen with girls, and girls avoid boys like the plague. It's a polarizing stage, like opposite electrical charges. I once saw a boy punished by having to sit next to a girl in class, the worst punishment for him. He glared at her and whispered, "Girls are so weak." Meanwhile, the girls whispered, "Boys are so rude, we don't want to be near them." But you know, this is a wonderful stage, designed by God to help kids develop their gender identity. When with their own gender, boys become more aggressive, fostering courage, heroism, and masculine ideals. They play soccer, compete, and explore their potential to become real men. Conversely, girls, when together, develop femininity, refinement, repentance, and an inner rhythm aligned with the universe. An educator once said, "Girls at this age start to sense they carry a mysterious creative power, like nature's rhythm." Indeed, it's God's gift. This separation stage is so ideal that I recommend educating boys and girls separately at this age, at least partially. If mixed too early, what happens? Boys risk becoming weak, overly feminine, not men, but mannequins, soulless figures. Girls, with too much boy contact, may become rough, masculinized, wearing overalls and acting like boys. Not that overalls are wrong. I'm not against fashion, but it's a sign of losing natural femininity. And you know what? No boy really likes a girl who's too boyish. Just as no man loves a woman who loses her gentleness. This stage is for boys and girls to shape themselves, preparing for the sparks of love later. Without this polarization, how can there be radiant romantic moments in the future? Then we reach the third stage, a captivating one I call crystallization. I chose this term for a beautiful image. If you place a piece of wood in the Salzburg salt mines, over time, it's covered with sparkling crystals, looking like precious gems. But they're not real gems, just temporary crystals. For teens around 14 to 18, it's the same. They start seeing each other differently. No longer as playmates or annoying rivals, they crystallize each other, assigning divine qualities. An ordinary boy becomes a god in a girl's eyes, and a girl becomes an angel. Girls whisper to friends, "He's truly divine." Boys dream, "He's my angel." Words like worship, adore, eternal enter their vocabulary. I once told a friend my angel about this stage, and he joked, "Ask if that angel can cook, especially angel food cake." Ha! You see, even angels need some practicality, but what's happening here? Something's right, and something's wrong. What's right is that this crystallization reflects a deep longing in young souls, a desire for the infinite, for eternal happiness. They don't just have bodies, they have souls. And those souls know they're made for endless joy and ecstasy God planned. They want to be with angels, with gods. And that's not wrong. Parents and teachers shouldn't mock when kids write love letters or daydream about the one. It's a sign of a heart seeking greatness. But what's wrong? They place that infinite longing in finite things in an ordinary boy or girl. Just crystals, not gems. They think eternal happiness lies in a fleeting physical or emotional relationship. That's the biggest mistake. I recall a Christmas visit to a perfume store where a girl, likely in this crystallization stage, walked in with sparkling eyes. She believed the perfume ad, one drop. And you're an angel, the clerk said. Here's the perfume. 35 yuan. She nodded, as if that scent would make her the world's muse. Or take two soldiers in Korea, sleeping side by side in barracks. One plastered his wall with girls' photos. The other looked and said, remember, they're 85% water. Funny. But it reminds us that teens exaggerate, deifying their crushes. Boys start washing behind their ears, wearing ties, fussing over clothes, no more patched pants. Girls discover lipstick, heels, perfume, all signs of crystallization. Preparing for something greater, true love. What should parents and teachers do? Don't mock or forbid. Empathize. Guide them to see that their infinite longing is right, but must be placed correctly in God, in divine love. Why does their love language sound religious worship? Eternal. Because love and religion are intertwined, just as hatred and atheism are. Their mistake is seeking the infinite in the finite. But the longing is God's gift. If guided right, they'll find true happiness. This stage bridges to the final one, courtship, where love matures. With moral and spiritual values, we'll explore next. But before going further, let's revisit the lesson from alcoholism. Teens in the crystallization stage, with infinite longing, are vulnerable to wrong temptations, not just misguided love, but alcohol, drugs, or consumer culture. How to guide them, like with alcoholics. Fill their longing with grace, with God's love, so they don't fall into slavery to false gods. And from here, we'll end with a call to action. Summing up today's lessons, we've traveled a long journey from the touching story of a 2-year-old girl dreaming of a horse, to deep arguments about family authority, to exploring how alcoholism reflects misplaced human longing, and finally to the captivating stages of youth relationships. All these from the horse, authority, the bottle, to young love revolve around one core truth. We're created with hearts yearning for the infinite, but we often get lost seeking it in finite things. Today, I want to end with a call to action, not just for reflection, but to truly change how we live, love, and raise our children. And as usual, I'll sprinkle in some humor, spirituality, and lots of hope for you to take home or wherever you're watching. Maybe on a television in your living room or a radio during lunch break, where our voice travels through airwaves to millions of humble, optimistic post-war families. Let's circle back. The 2-year-old girl dreaming of a horse taught us that longing, however small, is the heart's voice. When I decided to give her the horse and a saddle, like St. Bernard in the funny Lord's Prayer story, I didn't just want to fulfill her dream, but to remind us that charity is how we touch the infinite. When you send a small sacrifice, maybe a few coins from skipping cigarettes, a glass of wine at lunch, or a candy packet to 366 Fifth Avenue, you're not just helping the 65 million elderly, sick, and orphans we supported last year. More importantly, you're doing it for yourself, to enrich your soul, to draw closer to God. who created us with that infinite longing. Don't do it because the poor need it. Do it because you need it to love, to give, to feel you're living for something greater. From there, we saw that family authority isn't a shackle but the foundation of love. In debunking 3 wrong arguments that authority leads to authoritarianism, that giving orders loses love, or that teaching right and wrong causes guilt, I stress that children need parental guidance with love and moral worth. Colonel Vaughan throwing his tobacco box into the fire because of his son's words, or Judy's letter with 25 cents for extra chocolate, show kids have a natural conscience, ready to obey when parents are respectable. But if parents lack moral worth, like the drunken or thieving father, how can kids respect them? True authority is the authority of love. As Jesus said, if you love me, you will keep my commandments. John 1:4-1-5. Dear parents, be moral examples, so children obey out of love, not fear. Then we tackled alcoholism as self-imposed slavery, as Jesus calls slavery to sin. Through 4 stages: suggestion, action, habit, disease, I show that freedom always remains. Even in addiction, the husband hiding alcohol in love trophies, or Uncle Bill quitting after 20 years through Aunt Hannah's prayers, to prove people can choose the right path again through grace. But the key is why they drink, not for love of alcohol, but to escape life's shocks, failing marriages, financial stress, or feeling trapped. Dr. Jules Masserman's cat experiment with cats enduring shocks for food shows they drank to overcome pain, finding a lowercase god in the bottle instead of the true God. The cure, not just medical, but spiritual motivation. The woman spending $8, 000 yearly on alcohol, quitting after an hour on God's love, proves grace can change everything. Don't leave the soul empty, as in the gospel. When worse demons return, Matthew 1:2-4-3-4-5. Finally, with youth, we saw their infinite longing shine in 4 stages of boy-girl relationships: closeness, separation, crystallization, and courtship. In closeness, kids play innocently, like the beach kids sharing about last year's dad. In separation, boys and girls polarized to develop identity, boys learning strength, girls refinement, like nature's rhythm. Parents must protect this stage, avoiding early mixing, lest boys become mannequins or girls lose femininity. Then, in crystallization, youth deify each other, boys as God, girls as angels. I laughed when my friend joked, ask if the angel makes angel food cake. But their longing is right, only wrong when placed in finite things instead of God. Parents, don't mock. Guide them to divine love, so courtship becomes mature love, rooted in morality and faith. So, my call to action today. First, live like the 1-2-year-old girl, daring to dream and pray ceaselessly. But answer those longings with charity. Send a small sacrifice from the heart to help the poor, and, more importantly, enrich your soul. Second, as parents, be moral examples, so children obey out of love, not fear. Teach right and wrong early, like Judy's chocolate remorse, for a clear conscience. Third, for those struggling with addiction, alcohol or otherwise, remember, freedom remains open to grace, like Uncle Bill or the $8, 000 woman. Finally, with youth, walk with them through dreamy crystallization, guiding them to true love rooted in God. I'll end with a little story to make you smile. A boy once asked his mom, If I love you so much, will I still get spanked? She replied. No, son, because love makes everything lighter. That's the lesson for us all. Live with love and every burden from authority. Addiction to youthful longing becomes joy. Pray, love, give, and may God bless you all, bringing us closer each day to the infinite happiness He promised. Thank you. And see you next time, maybe with a new idiot card for better jokes.